I moved to Chicago for the plot, but I left Chicago broke with even more uncertainty and a different perspective of myself as a woman. So, as I said, I moved to Chicago for a year. I moved there in 2025, and then I left I left like maybe 2 weeks ago. But I stayed there for about a year and some change, maybe a year and a month. And it totally like rewired my brain in a good way, I guess. The isolation brought up a lot of bad things about not only my life but my relationships. But it also brought up some good things. Like I was able to finish my first year of my program, my master's program. So yeah, Chicago in itself was a very like bittersweet journey. So where do I want to begin? So I guess I'll start with me quitting my job. I quit my job after 7 years of working for an organization because essentially I was working remote and they revoked my privileges because I was back and forth from the doctor, and essentially I felt like they were trying to play in my face. And because I felt like they were trying to play in my face, I abruptly quit, like literally on the spot. I did not give them a 2 weeks notice at all. I just quit on a Monday, which I guess is symbolic because I was also born on a Monday. So I guess if you're woo-woo like me, then you'll probably get the symbolism there. But I did quit on a Monday. I'll never forget it. I don't think I'll ever forget the date. But yeah, after 7 years, I left the organization abruptly with no backup plan at all. And then quickly after that, after like a month of trying to figure out what I was gonna do, my partner got a job offer for a company in Chicago. And I remember being so excited because I was like, oh my gosh, like I've been to Chicago before, but I was only in Chicago for like 48 hours, roughly, like 48 hours back in 2020. Before the whole panini is what everybody's calling it, before that happened, I've been to Chicago and I liked, the food and the culture. I was just so excited. So I was like, oh, I get to actually live there. So I get to experience it. And child, did I experience it. So I quit, get the job offer, accepts it, fast track, March of 2025, hit the road with my cat, his dog, and we make our way to Chicago. We get there and it comes with its own set of just like circumstances because the move was not as soft of a landing as anyone would have liked, to be candid with you. So in a lot of ways, the start of it all was an indicator, I think, of like what was to come in a weird way. So yeah. Okay, so we got through the job, moving. So here comes the juicy part. So we get there, settle in, try to adjusting to the culture, adjusting to like the norms of like a different city, because I quickly learned that Chicago did not operate like a Virginia. The standards are different there than here. And I think the way that like people interact and communicate there are it's very different as well. I think, to be honest with you, I did not enjoy going downtown too much, just because the experiences that I've had, I went downtown twice while in Chicago to eat, and both times were horrible for me. Like, the first time was my birthday, and that experience was horrible. Like, the service was trash. And then we went to another spot, and that experience was horrible. So it kind of put a stain on my what's the word I'm looking for? It just put a stain on the city for me a little bit. It kind of soured how I viewed like dining and stuff down in Chicago. Now, what I will say is that on the west side in Chicagoland, I've had some of the best food. Like, they have really good tacos. I think I've had some of the best tacos I've ever had in Chicago. Are really good. Like, the food culture, because the city is so segregated, the food cultures are it's just really delicious and really good. It's really strong. So I'm isolated. The first summer there, well, my summer there, not the first summer, my summer in Chicago was hard because, one, I was adjusting, and I spent like an enormous amount of time inside. The only time that I really did go out and like do stuff was like when people did come and visit, and a family member of mine came to visit, and then a family member of his came to visit, and those were really the only pivotal points like that, where we actually got to get out and like explore, at least for me, where I actually got to get out and explore the city. And because, my money was funny and I didn't like taking public transit, it didn't make for me to be able to drive and, do and shop and, you know what I mean? And like participate and then really enjoy the city in a really like meaningful way. Which is not something that I didn't think about. And I think that that's something to make note of. If you do decide to move with someone, like, making sure that your well-being will be maintained or elevated should be priority. But yeah, I spent a year of isolation, and then school came, and I hit the ground rolling with school, and then the long winter came, the long night came, and I was in school, and it's cold, and you get I'm already a person that deals with depression, but it hits me really hard in the wintertime, and I expect it because seasonal depression, like less sunlight equals a whole mess of things that can happen. So I spent my time, what did I do in my time of isolation? I was doing a lot of schoolwork. Then I came back home to visit over the holiday. I got food poisoning, and then some things happened over the holiday that brought me to a realization, and I started coming to the realization of a lot of different dynamics within my personal life that I did not care for. So I started like slowly shedding people away. Oh wait, I'm gonna have to pause this video. Okay, I'm back. I took a very long pause, but anyway, to resume my story, and I'm probably going to be pausing. Let me stop distracting myself. So I left off at me talking about the isolation that I experienced while being in Chicago. So during that time, it was just a very like dark time because I had never been in a space where I was like isolated and I didn't know anyone. So it made for like the perfect disaster essentially. And then I just had a couple of negative run-ins with a couple of locals. And like I said, I was not in a space to really build community like that. So yeah, it was a very difficult time for me. Just lonely. Like I don't really know how to like best explain it, other than like just a very lonely existence, eating alone. Like I would be in the office all day working on classwork, schoolwork all day long with minimal sunlight. The only time I would go outside was to walk the dog. Like I said, I don't know if I mentioned it, but the public transit in itself is a benefit for us, but the public transit in Chicago is not really rider friendly. There's a lot of antisocial behavior that happens on there, so it doesn't really make for an enjoyable riding experience. So the cheaper transportation that was available to me, it wasn't safe for me. So it just created a recipe for me to be completely isolated, and I know that my mental health suffered. And then the dynamic between me and my partner became very, very toxic, because not only were we grappling with the financial situation of it all, but also like the fact that we're both in a new city and we're both like trying to adjust, and one person is adjusting and kind of has a sense of normalcy, and the other person is like struggling and trying to find a sense of normalcy. And in a lot of ways, I did feel like I was I vividly remember having an anxiety attack, actually, while I got an anxiety attack that happened to me while I was in Chicago. I remember one day I had to like talk myself off the ledge a little bit, because I had been inside for like a week consecutively. I think that was the week when I wasn't able to work. So I was just I was at home a lot, and I was already at home a lot. So the only time that I could go out was to work, and I wasn't even able to do that. And I remember I had like a kind of a sort of a mental breakdown. I remember like feeling like trapped is like the best way to explain it. And that was really the breaking point for me. Of course, I talked to my partner about how I was feeling, but I don't believe that one person, especially like expecting men to kind of show up in the way that, expecting anyone to kind of show up in the way that you would show up for yourself is just foolish. But I think that expecting a man, let alone one person, to kind of carry the brunt of what I was carrying, I think is just not really realistic. Not for everyone. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I don't think it's realistic. And I have to check on my ramen. Hold on, I will be back. Okay, I'm trying to decide if I want to eat and record or stop and eat. I think I'm just gonna stop and eat, but I want to finish my point before I do finish this up, because I don't want to make this too extra long, because it just makes it hard to function in Chicago under my circumstances that I was dealt, and it just made for a very depressing, miserable experience for me. My mental health suffered, my quality of life suffered, but I was thriving in school. That's the funny thing. I think while being under such immense pressure, I was able to turn a bad situation that could have been much worse and leverage it and turn it into something good. So with grad school, it was actually a good distraction. I think if I had been there and all I had was me trying to figure out what I was going to do for money and being alone, it would have driven me even madder. But I think being in grad school was just a perfect distraction. But it did not eliminate the reality that I was facing while being there. So yeah, my relationship became really toxic. The dynamic, like I was saying, expecting, I just expected too much, and I think it took a toll on both of us, and our dynamic just became toxic. Without divulging too much, it became really toxic. And I made the decision, the very heartbreaking decision, the hard decision to be like, okay, well, I'm going to start applying back home, and I'm going to start transitioning back home, because I don't have any, I don't know anyone here like that. I don't have any roots here. And I don't have a job here, so there is really no incentive for me to stay here under these conditions and circumstances. So I got a job offer, and I have been here. I'm living with a family member that has been gracious to open and extend their home to me so that I don't have to land too hard. Has it been difficult? Yes. Transitioning back, I've crashed out more than a few times. I've had more than a few emotional breakdowns. Yeah, and maybe I'll, talk about those in other videos, but it's been a struggle transitioning from Chicago back home. In a lot of ways, I did feel like I failed, but I didn't really fail, because I went there, I got my experience, I did it for the plot. I finished half of my program. I have one more year of my program left. And I think that I was able to essentially make lemonade out of lemons. Like, essentially that's what I was able to do. Yeah, that's pretty much the gist of like what it was there. Yeah, a lot of lonely nights. And mind you, I am a very like reserved, introverted person. So I'm very much getting used to, now it's a whole different type of solitude, but in Chicago, it was its own version of solitude. But in solitude, you're able to like learn and glean a lot. And even in that solitude, I was able to learn a lot more about myself. I was able to I was able to develop my own sense of self and what I want and what I'm expecting out of my life and the people in my life. So Chicago was not really all bad. I went to Chicago thinking one thing, but something else emerged in that process. And my hope for this channel is to embody the story of Lilith. Lilith, say that 5 times. Lilith left Eden, because she was not happy. And I think that with this channel, I would like to document my story and how I am taking everyday life struggles, everyday life adventures and challenges, and everything that comes with it, and turning it into something that is beautiful and making the best out of situations that present themselves to be shitty, essentially. And yeah, I think a huge part of my time in Chicago has taught me to just be strategic, be smarter, be logical, and never ever abandon myself again. So I hope that you all stick around to follow me on this journey, and I will see you all in the next video.